This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Our Al Jazeera correspondent in Palestine said that the Israeli occupation forces launched a new air raid in Gaza, which hit a vehicle, killed 2 and injured others. The number of martyrs who were killed by the Israeli occupation forces in Gaza has reached 23 in the past 2 days. Yesterday, 5 people were killed in different air raids. The martyrs included 8 from the Salah ad-Din brigades, who were killed when their vehicle was hit near Al-Burej refugee camp in the middle of Gaza. Meanwhile, 6 Israelis were injured by Palestinian missiles. Hamas's military wing Al-Qassam Brigades took responsibility for launching the missiles and said it was in response to the Israeli air attacks in Gaza. Among the wounded were 2 occupation soldiers who were injured when their patrol vehicle was hit by a missile in eastern Gaza. 4 other Israelis were injured in the Sderot settlement.
أعلنت وزارة الدفاع الإسرائيلية أنها أجرت بنجاح تجربة لإطلاق الصاروخ.
The Israeli Defense Ministry announced that it has successfully tested a long-range missile system near Tel Aviv. Israeli radio said that the missile is named Jericho 3 and that it can be equipped with unconventional weapons. The missiles were launched as a part of a series of tests to develop the Israeli defense system. Joining us from Jerusalem is our correspondent Ilyas Karame. Ilyas, do you have more details about this missile test?
هذه التجربة تصفها أجهزة الأمن الإسرائيلية بأنها كانت ناجحة ودراماتيكية على اعتبار أن
Israeli security agencies said that this test was extremely successful because the ballistic missile was developed by Israel. They added that such tests will continue and that more land-to-land missile tests will be conducted, some of which have a range of 4,400 kilometers. This missile test is part of the new vision which was introduced by the Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak when he took office with the objective of establishing a new anti-missile defense system that can protect most of Israel. The system includes the American Patriot anti-missile system and the Israeli HETS, or Arrow anti-missile system. The 2 systems have been tested several times over the past few months. According to military sources, these tests were very successful in all weather conditions. They also said that the 2 anti-missile systems can be used simultaneously. In addition, Israel is trying to develop a new system in which laser-guided missiles are used to hit short-range missiles such as the Katyusha and the Palestinian missiles that are locally made by the resistance.
Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Moussa travels to Beirut for political intervention to fill the presidential void. Today he met with the leader of the Free Patriotic Movement and resistance spokesman, PM Michel Aoun. Moussa's visit did not cause any breakthroughs worth mentioning in regards to the position of the majority in the resistance. The Lebanese streets are talking about internationalization, wondering if Moussa is capable of achieving any progress in the current state of affairs. Ilyan Shatiri reports from Beirut.
Amir Moussa promised to return, but his departure from Cairo to Lebanon took place under less optimistic circumstances. The Arab League Secretary General kept away from the lens of the camera, disappointing dozens of local Arab and foreign journalists at the airport in Beirut. They wanted to ask him about the purpose of his return visit to Lebanon and the outcome of his talks. Moussa's silence was interpreted by ex-foreign minister Fawzi Salloukh, who welcomed him at the airport.
During the press conference before his departure, he promised that he would come back to Lebanon, and he returned today to follow up on his fine efforts and his attempts to find a solution. He simply does not have any information to disclose at the moment.
The awaited visit by Moussa did not make the Lebanese people forget the atrocity preceding his arrival in the series of explosions in the Karantina area. For the first time since the 80s, the explosions targeted the diplomatic body and weighed heavily on the political arena. The Lebanese people fear that their country will become a stop and a box. A stop for Arab and foreign delegates, and a mailbox for security and political letters, both regional and international.
We are entering a new phase from now on titled The Failure of Arab Initiatives, or at least the disengagement of Arab countries being officially involved in Lebanon, thus opening the door for internationalization and the door for security problems, which showed their first signs yesterday with the Karantina explosion.
The security situation returns to the forefront. The political situation is unstable, and the economic and social situation is deteriorating. All this makes observers wonder about Amr Musa's ability to achieve any kind of breakthrough in this complicated scene. Lebanon's security is wounded and bleeding. The volcano of internal politics is erupting, and every side is holding on more strongly to its position. Amr Musa returned to Lebanon under these circumstances. The result of the Arab League mission assigned to him is, in the best-case scenario, mysterious.
The world's most influential organizations have predicted a good year for Iraq. The United Nations and the International Monetary Fund say they expect a period of sustained economic growth and political progress for the war-torn country. Well, that optimism isn't shared on the ground. In Baghdad, talk of reopening a bridge that once linked Sunni and Shia suburbs is not being welcomed. It was closed after a stampede claimed the lives of some 900 people. Hoda Abdelhamid has more.
This is Kathimiya, the Shia heart of Baghdad, home to the shrine of Imam Kazim, a place of pilgrimage for millions of Shias, particularly during this month, where they commemorate the death of their most venerated Imam, al-Hussein. And this is the Sunni district of Azamiyya, home to the shrine of Abu Hanifa, one of the leading figures of Sunni Islam. It sits just across the Tigris River, facing Kathimiya. For decades, these two ancient districts were linked by a bridge.
The
bridge is the economic and religious lifeline of the district. Everything went through it: food, supplies, and people. It linked two holy districts. On the other side, there is a holy shrine. It's called the Bridge of the Imams. They didn't choose one name over the other. They called it like the Bridge of the Imams in respect towards both holy men.
The Bridge of the Imams was closed in 2005 after a stampede sparked by a rumor that a suicide bomber was among Shia pilgrims killed nearly 1,000 people. The government has kept it shut down since to avoid cross-river attacks. That was then. Now it says there is enough security for the bridge to reopen in defiance of terrorism, says the spokesman of the Baghdad security plan. Oddly enough, Sunni Azamiyya is on the other side of the river, which is the Shia part of town, and Shia Kathimiya is on this side, which is mostly Sunni. So for the past 2 years, people have been living in these sectarian bubbles, completely cut off from the outside world. Reopening the bridge is absolutely essential to bring some sort of normality to their lives, but many fear it will bring a lot of trouble too. The Sunni Azamiyya district has become a ghost town surrounded by a concrete wall, which seals it off from its Shia surroundings. Al-Qaeda was chased from here lately, thanks to local residents who now patrol and safeguard their area. Still, they say, it's too soon for the bridge to reopen. The wounds are too fresh.
If they open the bridge, there would be no security. We would like the bridge to open so we can get goods, people can go to work. Better to keep it shut at the moment. We also need to see the goodwill from the other side.
As violence decreased, the Iraqi government is now facing the difficult task of lifting those very measures that improved security but made daily life so difficult across the capital. An essential step to bring people together again and cement national reconciliation. But the general feeling here is, not yet. Let more water flow under the bridges of Baghdad, taking with it those bloody memories. Hoda Abdelhamid, Al Jazeera, Baghdad.
Some Americans hold the Bush administration responsible for the decline in the U.S. economy and the rise in prices. They blame this crisis on the administration's war in Iraq and the failure of domestic economic policies.
In 1992, President Bush, the father, left the White House after being defeated in the elections, leaving behind for his successor, Bill Clinton, an economic catastrophe represented by a dangerous economic recession. Today, President Bush, the son, is in his last year in the White House amid strong signs of an imminent recession in the U.S. economy. These signs made the issue of the economy a top priority for the candidates in their presidential elections. Their first priority is no longer just the war in Iraq.
The voters feel reform is necessary to contain this recession, but there also needs to be reform in the departments of justice and state as well as in the budget. The presidential candidates' statements are focusing on these things.
Some signs of an imminent recession are the rise of unemployment rate last month and the fall in consumption rate, which alone represents 2/3 of local production. The US dollar is weakening against other major currencies. The deficit in the federal budget continues to grow. The war on Iraq alone has so far cost nearly $500 billion. However, this is not the only problem. When President Bush entered the White House 7 years ago, the cost of 1 gallon of gasoline to the U.S. consumer was just 90 cents. Today, the cost of 1 gallon is more than $3, and the rise in the price of oil has increased energy costs and the price of American manufactured goods. In addition, another crisis currently threatens the U.S. economy. It is the subprime mortgage loan crisis in the housing market, which forced banks to foreclose millions of homes of Americans who were unable to pay their loans. Bush's popularity has fallen to 28% due to the deteriorating economic situation and because of Iraq. This has compelled the presidential candidates in his own Republican Party to distance themselves from him.
You have a president.
It is clear when you have a president who is in his last year in office, whose popularity has not exceeded 30%. His reputation was also damaged by the war in Iraq.
واكتسب لنفسه سمعة كرئيس غير كفء وغير مؤهل.
With events starting with Katrina, the situation in Iraq, there's sort of an image of ineptitude and incompetence.
The U.S. president is trying to look for an exit from this deteriorating economic crisis. He is expected to announce some proposed solutions during his State of the Union speech at the end of this month. After 1 year, when the new U.S. president enters this white building, he will find 2 catastrophes awaiting him: the catastrophe of President Bush in Iraq and the other catastrophe, the economy. Atif Abdel Jawad, Syrian Arab Television, Washington.
Black-clad Iranians are out in mosques and religious sites to mourn the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, the 3rd Imam of the Prophet Muhammad's household. Elsewhere in the world of Islam, Muslims attended mourning ceremonies to honor the memory of Imam Hussein and his true followers who fell martyr 1400 years ago. President Ahmadinejad says the Middle East tour of U.S. President George W. Bush bore no results but tension. and sowed the seeds of discord and intimidation. Ahmadinejad made the remark in an interview with Al Jazeera TV network. On Tehran's nuclear case, the Iranian president said, "It is time for the UN Security Council to correct its past mistakes and return Iran's dossier to the International Atomic Energy Agency." Ahmadinejad then made it clear that the U.S. ballyhoo on possible military action against Iran is largely geared for their own domestic factional disputes. However, as he reiterated, the Iranian nation will make any aggressive power regret any intention of attack on Iran. President Ahmadinejad says the Zionists have reached the end of the road and have no way out but to bow to the will of the Palestinian nation. In a phone conversation, the president told head of political office of Hamas, Khalid Mash'al, that Israeli crimes have hit their pinnacle, adding the Zionist regime and its partners in crime would be brought to justice soon. Ahmadinejad added the Palestinian nation would sure ride out the hardships triumphantly. He further said the Iranian nation will stand by their fellow Muslims in Palestine up until the ultimate victory of the oppressed people comes true. The Hamas official in turn thanked Iran's stances on Palestine, saying Palestinians will resist to the bitter end for their rights. Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council Saeed Jalili held discussions with Chinese Foreign Minister Yang Jiechi on issues of mutual interests. The two sides also conferred on the latest developments concerning Iranian nuclear program. Afterwards, Jalili described as constructive his talks with Chinese top diplomats, saying Beijing favors diplomacy for solving Tehran's nuclear case. Earlier, Jalili told reporters upon arrival Iran will continue its positive cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. He added, countries which intended to impose sanctions on Iran and put the country under pressure have achieved no success yet. He said Iran and China enjoy amicable ties and stressed the importance of expanding relations in all fields. Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim was another senior official who backed Iran's civilian atomic program, saying diplomacy is a key solution to settle Iran's nuclear dispute. Speaking at a joint press conference with his German counterpart Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the Syrian top diplomat said Damascus encourages IAEA Secretary General Mohammed al-Baradei and Iran to cooperate fully to settle the issue. First Vice President Parviz Dawoodi said Iran and Syria enjoy friendly ties, calling for expansion of relations in line with interests of both nations. Dawoodi made the remarks in a meeting with visiting Syrian Economy and Trade Minister Amir Hosni Lutfi and expressed Iran's satisfaction with the growing cooperation in different trade, economic, industrial, cultural and political fields. The Syrian minister, for his part, hoped that the current level of mutual cooperation would increasingly expand. Meanwhile, Iran's Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Mohammad Saidi Kia, and the Syrian Minister of Economy and Trade signed a memorandum of understanding to boost economic cooperation, including power plant establishment. A recent study by the American Enterprise Institute, AEI, shows foreign companies have struck more than $153 billion in deals with Iran since the year 2000. The AEI report has also found that the value of foreign deals with Iran rose from $21.68 billion in the year 2000 to $47.5 billion in the year 2007. During the period studied, China was Iran's #1 trading partner with over $101 billion. French, German, Italian, Japanese, Austrian, Dutch, South Korean, British and Indian companies have followed China respectively. Hematology, Oncology and Bone Marrow Transplantation Center Research Center at Tehran University of Medical Sciences, TUMS, has joined the International NetCourt Foundation, which is one of the world's largest blood bank networks. The research center has carried out extensive studies and has been in close contact with international scientific and research centers. Back in 1991, Iran's first bone marrow transplant was performed in the TUMS Hematology Center. A teenage suicide attacker blew himself up at a packed mosque in the northwestern Pakistani city of Peshawar, killing 8 people and wounding 20. The explosion ripped through crowds of people who were marking Ashura. Witnesses said the attacker opened fire with an assault rifle before detonating himself just inside the mosque. After the attacks, worshippers staged angry protests and beat their chests in mourning.
The French government has decided to educate imams who will work in French mosques at Catholic universities teaching world religions. This has generated a big controversy among the Muslim community in France. Saad al-Musadi provided us with the following report.
The French government said that it wants to educate the 2,000 French Muslims who want to become imams in French mosques about world religions, secularism, and different cultures. They will be appointed in one of the 1,800 mosques throughout France. These imams will be trained at a Catholic university to educate them about non-Muslim societies. They will take religious and cultural classes, which already started this month and will continue for the next 6 months.
The Catholic University agreed to train the imams by expanding their knowledge and education, not to convert them. The objective is to educate them about other religions. We do not want to change their Islamic principles.
France, which has always worked to get rid of fundamentalism, wants to prevent it from entering into France by the way of the imams who come from abroad. The objective is to protect its mosques from fundamental ideologies which may come from the unstable northern African region, and to make sure that the imams who come from abroad give Friday sermons which are not in contradiction with French values.
This step is aimed at providing a higher level of education in order to enhance religious beliefs. It supports the notion that we all belong to monotheistic religions, regardless of whether we are Christians, Jews, or Muslims.
Some Muslim organizations object to the French government's intervention in training Muslim imams. Those who support the government's decision accuse those who oppose it as being fundamentalists. Some said that they support the notion of establishing mosques that are independent from the imams' countries of origin.
The Catholic University teaches cultural, social, and legal matters. It has nothing to do with religious matters. However, there was confusion among the French media, which made it look as if the imams will be molded by the Catholic University.
Meanwhile, the Grand Mosque in Paris will provide educational seminars to educate French citizens about Islamic culture and will provide Arabic classes. Providing education about different cultures and the main religions in France is primarily geared toward educating imams who come from abroad and who are not familiar with the French language and culture. Saad al-Musadi, Al-Arabiya from Paris Grand Mosque. An Egyptian female parliamentarian accepts the condition of her colleague and resigns in order to marry him. Meanwhile, Usta Muna is a poor young woman who prefers to fix tires to support herself and her family. This report by our colleague Muna Ashmawi.
تحمل المرأة المصرية على كاهلها عبئين. العبء الأول
The Egyptian woman carries 2 burdens on her shoulder. The first is that men's views of her decline when she achieves her dreams and succeeds. The second burden is the battle she is waging so that she can prove that she is worthy of what she wants. If a woman is able to succeed in her work, then she may be faced with many rumors that harm her reputation. She may also encounter people who will try to detract her from reaching a certain position. If we take a quick glance at Egyptian parliament, we will find that the number of elected female parliamentarians do not exceed the number of fingers on one hand. Their numbers decreased after one female parliamentarian resigned when she married her colleague in the parliament. He had asked her to resign from her position in order to be free for married life. A man replaced her in the parliament in a case which is the first of its kind.
هي الأولى من نوعها.
بالنسبة لحادثة استقالة النائبة الزميلة السابقة الدكتورة شاهناز النجار.
Regarding the resignation of our colleague, former Representative Dr. Shahnaz al-Naggar, who married our colleague Muhammad Ahmad Aiz, the Secretary of the National Party, the papers indicate that one of the conditions of the marriage was that she resign from the parliament. I think this was a personal choice that relates to them, Dr. Shahnaz and Muhammad al-Aiz.
نسبة تواجد المرأة في البرلمان لا تختل أكثر ما هي مختلة يعني.
There are very few women in the parliament as compared to men. I think there were many opponents and independents who wanted a female candidate for the National Party to take the seat of Dr. Shahnaz in the same way. However, we were surprised that a man replaced her. I don't think that the National Party was able to find a woman to wage a battle and win the seat of Dr. Shahnaz.
تصلح لأن تخوض المعركة وتفوز بالمقعد بديلة عن الدكتورة شاهناز.
Meanwhile, a stir was made when women demanded that they be nominated for high judicial positions, other than administrative positions, which they had already attained. Some people doubted their capabilities and perseverance while also going through pregnancy and birth. All this broke away from the traditional judiciary in Egypt. Despite all this, there are very few female Egyptian judges who have proved with time their qualification and their worthiness.
لما جينا في مطالبة بحقوق النساء استنادا على نفس المرجعية.
When we made demands for women's rights based on the International Convention to End the Discrimination of Women, we were surprised to find that they used different standards and spoke about Islamic law. With regards to Islamic law, the judges, the sheikhs, and the Egyptian mufti all said that there is nothing prohibiting the appointment of women as judges, but they stood by their positions. I think this is a male position that is absent of justice and makes us doubt these same judges and their ability to judge or work in the judiciary system within Egyptian society.
هناك بعض النساء فضلن العمل في أعمال الرجال.
Some women prefer to work a man's job without drawing the attention of this complicated society, which holds backward ideas. Ustamuna has been fixing tires ever since she was 7 years old. She is now 25 years old and refuses to get married. She prefers to take care of her sick father and 5 siblings.
اشتغلت وأنا صغيرة عندي 7-8 سنين.
I worked when I was 7 or 8 years old. I decided to work after my father became sick. I worked to help him and my siblings go to school. I was treated as a young boy. My name was Laskavelli.
عشان أساعده وأساعد إخواتي في المدارس. أنا كنت صبي صغير.
Then, when I grew up, they called me Ustamuna. I worked and then became known as Ustamuna. Everyone who comes to get their tires fixed calls me Ustamuna.
وبقيت صناعية اسطمون. كل الناس بتيجي تصلح وتقول الاسطمون.
ما زالت المرأة المصرية تتعرض لكثير من الظلم في المجتمع.
The Egyptian woman continues to be oppressed by society. The problem of motherhood, female genital mutilation, young marriages, and honor killings dominate many Egyptian villages. It appears that the situation will require many years for the society to become confident in the capabilities of women and to not look at them as just beautiful bodies with hair and breasts. Despite the passing of a century since the liberation movement of Egyptian women, women in Egyptian society face many challenges and obstacles amidst a patriarchal society that imposes its laws on them.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV. For educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. programs which connect you to the world.